This week on the video version of The Business of Tech, Kaseya buys Datto, so I weigh in with my take. Just what is the ideal number of days in the office? Falling trust in tech and small business owners' unease tells a tale. Practical data highlights on how to manage remote teams. And Microsoft's potential licensing about-face. All this and more. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, and here are this week's stories. So the big headline in the world of MSPs is that Kaseya is acquiring Datto. With funding led by Insight Partners, who are back at the table after previously investing rounds in Kaseya, the two companies will operate entirely independently until the deal is finalized, which is expected to close in the second half of 2022. Why do we care? I saw commentators say it's not good news for anybody, and one might think this is mass chaos based on the buzz on social media and on Reddit. I'll start with my standard advice here. Nothing is different about these products today than was true yesterday. Calm down. Let's start with the financial motivations. I can tell you today that any shareholders in Datto just made 52%. So it's good for them. And mind you, anyone at Datto with stock coming as part of their compensation. Now onto the investors. They think they can make more money here, as shocking they have before. For a sense, Insight Partners is doing deals very regularly. This is just Monday for them. They've made 80 investments so far this year, and Crunchbase has them listed at currently 859 investments, with 576 as the lead. This one is big, but they have $46.1 billion in 11 funds. These gamblers, and remember, they're gambling, make money by taking these pools and placing them on bets out in the market. The takeaway is that this is not a big deal for Insight. It's just not. It's Monday. And they're even playing with an asset they know and like and have used before. TechCrunch recently covered how they have a, quote, stunning $90 billion in assets under management. They aren't even alone as the investors in this deal. All about the financial play, people. This leads to the predictions. You won't see any product changes in 2022. Period. They'll go out of their way to keep things the same until the deal closes. Once that happens, start a timer for 12 months of executive chaos. As any student of M&A preaches, the problematic part is company cultures coming together. Prediction: the Kaseya management team is dominant. Insight likes them, has worked with them, and knows what they're getting. Product predictions are easy because, despite the noise of headline RMM overlap, there's a lot that doesn't overlap. AgileBlue, rapid-fire tools, compliance manager, spanning cloud apps, IT agent, Graphis, Rocket Cyber, and True Methods, and then Datto Commerce, Wi-Fi, switches, and edge routers. AgileBlue is so notable that they put it twice in the press release. Well done, PR folks. Sure, there's overlap on backup with Datto Suite and unit trends. That's easy. Everything survives. Serious, backup is so crowded that they're not the only company with more than one solution. So two categories remain, PSA and RMM. This is also easy to predict. On RMM, I say Kaseya's VSA survives. However, there won't be any discussion of sunsetting Datto RMM until 2024 or 2025. If they're clever, they'll find a way to merge the two. If they're not, they'll offer price incentives to keep people around. On PSA, Autotask becomes dominant, but BMS and Vorex survive and are positioned differently. Again, no noise about pulling them together in 2022 or 2023. And a final piece of advice. For those who like your products, now is the time to lock things in. Rather than freak out, you have two management teams highly motivated to keep you on the ranch. Leverage that as far as you can go, because retention is the name of the game for the leadership right now. You have the most power you will have during this transition right now. For those of you who don't like the products, you have three options. First, you can wait out the leadership changes while considering your options. Second, you can leverage the inevitable flurry of competitive hawks that will swoop in. Or, third, consider the larger sense of where the market is going. Look to my coverage of Apple and Microsoft, and I'll tease a larger editorial I'm working on. Because in all cases, there is absolutely no urgency. From a business operations perspective, nothing has changed. 2 pieces of market news today. Gartner thinks IT spending will rise 4% this year, and specifically cites technology service providers as increasing prices due to a lack of IT talent and more competitive salaries. This is helping drive spending on IT services up 6.8% this year and 8.5% next year. Gartner's analysis of IT spending over the next 2 years demonstrates that the path toward digital transformation takes longer than 2 years, with IT spending rising and forecasted to rise significantly in each year since the pandemic. Companies are channeling cash where they can ease operational constraints and boost cash flow. Information Services Group's report says similar stuff. The global market for IT and business services grew at its fastest rate ever in 2021. Quoting VentureBeat, a key takeaway from the study is that managed service providers, MSPs, face a market of bountiful opportunities, but must prepare for this growth by embracing complex technologies like hybrid cloud management, root cause analysis, and automation. OpsRamp also asked MSPs to name just one technology that would get the most traction in 2022. Managed cloud services and managed network services tied for the top spot, each garnering 20% of responses, outpacing managed security services at 16%. IT infrastructure monitoring was the clear winner for the most critical technology needed to manage delivery of those services, selected by 55% of respondents, followed by network performance monitoring at 47%. Why do we care? This would normally be my lead story, but I knew the audience can't resist the Datto one. But these data points are more important. Listen to what the survey said. While respondents said that IT infrastructure monitoring is the most important technology, the key takeaway is that hybrid cloud management, root cause analysis, and automation are the needs. In the deal we talked about before, I'd argue that root cause analysis isn't in there. Hybrid cloud management barely is, and only automation is a core expertise. Rather than spend time looking at the past, spend time looking to the future and addressing the real needs ahead. That's why we care. The new Q1 2022 Quarterly Remote Work Report by career platforms Ladders found that a quarter, at 24% of all professional jobs in the US and Canada, are now permanent remote roles, with the number of roles being advertised as non-office based rising sharply even from the final quarter of 2021. By Q4 of 2021, 3 million additional roles made the transition to permanently remote, Ladders found, an abrupt increase that researchers said may indicate a permanent change in the US. The sharp increase in remote roles was higher than researchers had predicted. In Q4 2021, 18% of all professional jobs in the US and Canada were hiring remotely. Ladders had estimated that this would increase to 25% by the end of 2022. As a percentage of all their jobs, the top industries hiring for remote work were enterprise technology, hospitality and recreation, information technology, and technical services. TechIsle's version, the TechIsle SMB and Mid-Market Hybrid Work Adoption Trend Survey, indicates that 41% of SMBs plan a phased approach to return to the office, up from 22% in 2021. 20% of employees will likely work from home, in sharp contrast to 58% in 2021, similar to pre-pandemic levels of 2019, when 29% of small business employees, 9% of employees within mid-market firms, and 7% within upper mid-market firms will also work from home. Tech Aisle survey also shows that 42% of employees that want to work 3 days to 4 per week from home. The annual Computer Week Tech Target IT survey also gives a bit of a landscape. 38% of IT workers say their firm allows flexible working. Just over 30% said they now work from home all the time, and 27% said they work from home several days a week. A contrast to the 1920 survey, in which only 10% of respondents said they worked from home all the time, and 46% said they worked from home less than a day a week. That may not mean 9 to 5 working. Microsoft published its second annual Work Trend Index report. The company's data suggests that 9 to 5 is over, and that meetings outside of previous norms are now common, creating a third peak of activity at night for some. Microsoft researchers call it the triple peak day. This is a new level of activity, and the average Teams user sends 42% more chats per person after hours. I'll include this one here. While not expected to pass, the California legislature is considering a bill that reduces the work week to 4 days for companies larger than 500 employees. This is all among a significant reversal from JP Morgan's CEO, recognizing that he can't fight remote work, now acknowledging it will be part of the organization. Why do we care? This is the macro view of the world, bit of duh, of course, there is a permanent change in the US. Let me contrast the two data sets. Tech Aisle is surveying what SMBs think will happen. Ladders is tracking what has happened. The management hallucination that we're returning to the before times is just that. Fantasy. Even JP Morgan can't resist. The California law is a data point to show the recognition of the change. I don't think the law will pass, but the fact that it's being discussed shows the direction. More importantly, the industries. Technology will be heavily remote, so IT services companies had better get good at this from an internal staffing perspective. Do that, then monetize teaching others. And in this section, practical advice for you and your customers, quoting Tech Republic. A new survey illustrates that nearly all, at 96% of the 200 decision makers surveyed, said remote employees are disadvantaged compared to those who primarily work in the office. Reportedly, those at the highest levels value on-camera employees working remotely. Of the executives surveyed, 92% said workers who are less involved, muted regularly, or do not have video enabled likely do not have long-term futures ahead of them at work. Decision makers view this as a signal that subpar work performance will be a problem down the road, as 93% said employees who turn their cameras off are generally less engaged in their work overall. 46% of U.S. executives said they had not given their employees the tools they needed to be as engaged as their in-person counterparts. Nearly half, at 49%, say those at the C-level are the most responsible for this disconnect, followed by HR at 28%, and those at the managerial level at 10%. From an employee perspective, the frequency and bulk of virtual meetings have contributed to a significant portion of those being disengaged. Zoom fatigue is a real factor, as 48% of executives admit that many employees are not as involved due to too many meetings. Why do we care? If the first story is the macro level, this is the micro level. If you're an employee, remember that turning off your camera is your choice, and it has an impact. You, the employee, are responsible for making sure you are your own best cheerleader. If you're a manager, know your biases and weaknesses. Strong orgs will eliminate unnecessary meetings, promote asynchronous work, and ensure remote workers' management weaknesses aren't fatal flaws. Again, get good at this, then resell it. Today, let's talk about staffing and hiring and sentiment, because there's a lot of data. In data from Cobalt, Of the 602 security and development professionals surveyed, 54% said they currently want to quit their jobs due to overwhelming responsibilities and workforce shortages within their departments. As part of its study, Cobalt has found that the lack of workers plagues those in the security field for several reasons. For one, within the cybersecurity division, the numbers are pretty bleak regarding the lack of employees. Of those surveyed, 45% said their department is currently experiencing a shortage of employees. In addition, nearly all 90% of those who have suffered from this talent deficiency said they are struggling with the amount of work currently being assigned to them, leading to a large swath of employees feeling burnt out. Teams in this sector are reportedly unable to fix or prevent the same vulnerabilities for at least the past 5 years due to this dearth of talent. ISACA found similar news. In State of Cybersecurity 2020, Global Update on Workforce Efforts, Resources, and Cyber Operations, they find that 60% of respondents said they'd experienced difficulty retaining qualified cybersecurity professionals, up 7 points from 2021. Why do we care? I wanted to highlight this. With all the talk of cybersecurity as a significant offering, are there enough employees to deliver? Cybersecurity isn't about buying a product, it's about providing a comprehensive service, and this data is grim. There aren't enough cyber teams, and the ones there are overworked and under intense stress. Yeah, sign me up for that. I wish I had some quip to solve this problem for small providers. I don't. I believe in outsourced services to augment businesses and think the approach is ideal for small and mid-sized companies. But what I ponder is, the stakes are a lot higher in cybersecurity than network or desktop support, and the skill set is more advanced. Can this scale out? AgileBlue is a 24/7 SOC, XDR, and SOAR, providing managed breach protection, including monitoring, detection, and automated response to clouds, networks, and endpoints, helping MSPs build their cyber business while increasing gross margins, ARR, and stickiness. AgileBlue's partner program engages, enables, supports, and rewards your business growth with a white-labeled security dashboard, pooled pricing, marketing collateral, and purpose-built sales content. A 24/7 extension of your team. Learn more at AgileBlue.com. Nuvia's latest UK channel partner survey says that most partners expect the growth they experienced last year to continue, with 75% experiencing growth between 2 and 10% last year, and 62% predicting that to be the same again this year. On hybrid working, there are two camps. One accepting that remote working had increased productivity and helped strategic thinking. At the same time, the other, which was smaller, expressed their views that working remotely had made running the business more difficult. The negatives around hybrid working included working long hours and struggling to see customers and colleagues. Nuvia suggested that the different responses could be linked to generational divides and job categories. There's also research out regarding the impact of company culture. Does remote work destroy company culture? No, an MIT and WebEx survey found. That instead, it improves company culture and feelings of inclusion and diversity. At least 56% of Generation Z, 52% of millennials, 45% of Generation X, and 35% of baby boomers say that diversity and inclusion have improved with the advent of remote and hybrid work models. At least 44% of respondents from North America and Europe believe that the ability to express personal opinions has increased. For those interested in the research on how much you should be in the office, a new Harvard Business School paper reports on research giving us the sweet spot of hybrid work. It's just 1 or 2 days in the office, providing workers with the flexibility they want without the isolation of fully remote. That from Bloomberg, which is a sign of the times, also has guidance on the, quote, the smart way to shift to a 4-day work week. For a bit of color, The New York Times has a piece on tech companies' efforts to make the return to the office fun, with perks, parties, food, and even concerts. Why do we care? As the article observes, not commuting gives the average office worker an hour a day back. So, quote, you can see why employees are not going to start coming to work for free bagels or to play ping pong. This is the typical BS when leaders don't know what to do. Earlier in the week, I noted the data showing technology companies would be leaders in remote work, which is why this data is essential. The research shows the direction. It's the confident who will take advantage of it, and the managerially challenged who throw pizza parties. 2 troubling signs. First, Edelman's annual 2022 Trust Barometer shows a continued decline in tech company trust in the US and Canada. Here are the numbers, quoting Axios. Globally, the tech industry remains the most trusted sector of business, earning the trust of 74% of those served, ahead of healthcare and education. By contrast, social media is the lowest ranked sector, trusted by only 44% of respondents. However, only 54% of Americans trust tech companies to do the right thing, down 3 percentage points from last year and a whopping 19 points since 2019. In the US, the decline in trust was seen across a number of the most talked about sectors, including 5G, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and virtual reality. Those with higher incomes tended to trust tech more than those in lower income brackets. However, the gap narrowed last year, with trust improving among lower income Americans and falling among the wealthy. Second, in Next's Small Business Survey, troubling signs of small business owners' uneasiness. Here, quoting ZDNet. Many small business owners say they're forced to raise prices, work longer hours, and pay more for labor. Nearly 40% of the more than 1,000 small business owners surveyed said they're feeling frustrated or stressed by the state of America's workforce. Those small businesses are feeling that stress and frustration tend to be very small, employing between 1 and 20 employees. But the results of the survey also indicate a certain resilience among small business owners. Businesses with 20 or more employees say they're feeling significantly more optimistic, at 43%, than companies with 9 employees or less, 22%. Overall, the survey paints a rather pessimistic outlook for small businesses in the near future. While less than 1/3 of small business respondents, 29%, said they feel optimistic about an economic recovery in the next 12 months, 35% said they were considering shutting down their business, with 8% of those saying they've thought about it a lot. The survey focused on 4 key findings. Small business owners are burning out. Small businesses are paying more for labor today, with the smallest businesses seeing the greatest percentage increase in wages. Inflation and supply chain delays are having the greatest impact on small businesses, and tax season poses stress for some small business owners. One more dimension to note: geography. Businesses in rural areas reported less worker satisfaction than those in more populated or urban areas. Rural business owners interviewed say workers in their industry are more uncertain, less appreciated, less motivated, less flexible, and less content than those in urban settings. Why do we care? Trust in tech companies is down, and small businesses are under intense pressure. I want to be realistic about the market conditions. My advice? Get close to your customers if you let any space come between you. Much like entering the pandemic, track them, their industries, and how your customers' customers are doing. Don't squander trust, because despite what many will have you believe, the industry is doing small companies no favors. Left out of this is that companies are created in downtimes too, and those companies tend to be stronger. That's something to consider. Consider the new companies entering the market and ensure you're seeking them out. They'll be more resilient in the long term too. An interesting find from CISPRO. 47% of manufacturers and distributors invested in sensors and IoT networks, but just 20% did the same for data analytics tools, which are necessary to gain insights from the data they're collecting. Plus, 69% of businesses considered a digitalization strategy aimed at enhancing existing business processes with digital technologies, but only 29% of businesses committed to a fully fledged digital transformation strategy. Why do we care? Right there. That's where the good meat of services lives now. The gap between buying the tech and then seeing data results, which would then ideally translate into business outcomes, and it's a real lost opportunity. If you're in services, do not squander this. It's my good, better, best model. It's good to keep the lights on. It's better to impact costs directly in SG&A, but it's best to impact revenue or costs of goods sold. Missing out on the benefits of the business is essential. High profit revenue is left on the table. The filet mignon of meat. ConnectWise released their 2022 MSP Threat Report, and the headline isn't great. The report predicts continued financial losses from ransomware attacks and an increase in legislation. Here are two key findings. The market will see an evolution of a super MSP, MSPs that have joined together through mergers and acquisitions because of private equity with deep financial pockets that have entered the channel. And ransomware operators will continue to shift focus to mid-tier organizations capable of decent-sized payouts, but will not get as much public attention when compromised. Previous versions of the report were done by Perch Security, which was purchased by ConnectWise in 2020. And as per an analysis by Digital Shadows, over half of all ransomware attacks reported during the first 3 months of this year are the work of just two criminal outfits. Lockbit 2.0 and Conti take the title with 58% of all incidents. Why do we care? I don't think the security prediction is anything groundbreaking. Instead, the subtle predicted shift in the business model is interesting. Will ransomware operators move upmarket and target more prominent companies? I'm not so sure. As anyone who studies product development knows, there's a market for a volume game with high volume and low transaction size, and there's also a market for more premium products at a higher price point to a smaller audience. I'd say it'll be both. This is an and, not an or. Predicting the super MSP is an easy one because it's already happened. No risk there. We care because it's been acknowledged by a player in the space, and they said it out loud. Today, let's dispel the Apple products don't get malware or hacked myth, quoting ZDNet. A report by Atlas VPN, based on data from Telefonica Tech Cybersecurity, shows how vulnerabilities found in Apple products surged by 467% during the second half of 2021 to 380 exploits, a dramatic rise from the 67 uncovered during the first half of 2021. This puts the number of vulnerabilities found in Apple products in the latter 6 months of 2021 just a stone's throw away from the top generators of vulnerabilities, Google at 511 vulnerabilities and Microsoft at 428. According to the report, a good chunk of Apple's vulnerabilities relate to the Safari web browser and its various operating systems. In contrast, most of Microsoft's vulnerability are associated with Windows OS versions, Office tools, and the Microsoft Edge browser, while Google's are primarily focused on the Android operating system and the Chrome browser. Why do we care? It's always baffled me the lack of macOS support for those in infrastructure. This is a group of clients who pay a premium for equipment. Why are they not more important to traditional infrastructure players? And why are there two ecosystems for managing devices? Regardless, take the data points to know these devices need to be managed. In the stories that crossed my desk twice department, Microsoft may be making changes to the way they license software, specifically focused on customers who want to run products on other cloud providers. This is from Bloomberg reporting, which focuses on European competition authorities responding to complaints from a French cloud provider. The specific issue relates to a 2019 change that Microsoft made that blocked Office, not Office 365, on AWS or Google Cloud. It also significantly increased the cost of Windows Server on everything but Azure, blocked using Amazon Workspaces to run virtual desktops using Office, and additional licensing costs for Windows Server on AWS or Google Cloud. There is no specific timeline for the changes. Still, Bloomberg also got Microsoft President Brad Smith to acknowledge that the company needs to address these valid concerns, even though he provided no details on when or how the company will do so. Why do we care? The collision of legislation and licensing. The Europeans are leading here. Interesting to note how US partners write change.org petitions, but Europeans go to court and get things changed. That alone should be pretty telling. My non-story of the week was Elon Musk and Twitter. Why? Because it doesn't matter for IT services companies. I wanted to acknowledge an active choice not to cover it because there's no answer to why do we care? We don't. Is there a story thread you want more of? I'm asking if there is a thread you do care about and you aren't hearing enough of, hit me up, dave@mspradio.com. I'm listening. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in the Business of Tech. Shows come out each week, pulling together the daily podcast. If you like this show, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The content here is possible because of supporters like you. If you want access to shows early, answers to your questions, and private interactions, join our Patreon. It's pay what you want. You decide what the content is worth. Join at patreon.com/mspradio. Patreons also get access to the written versions of every story as they come out. If you want the stories right away, you can get them on the daily podcast. Find The Business of Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. Subscribe links at businessof.tech, and I'll talk to you again next week.